have 9 o'clock. I'd like to call the July 15th meeting of the Person Board of County Commissioners to order at this time. We recognize that we do have a quorum. I will lead us in an invitation, after which Commissioner per year will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you care, pray with me, please. Merciful God, we come before you today with humble hearts for the place that we're in. Pray for your guidance in decisions made here today. And we humbly pray for our country in the times that we're in, with the events that have occurred in recent days that are not reflective of what our nation and what our country should be. Pray for your divine intervention and guidance in all things. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is discussion and adjustment, approval of the agenda with some changes. I need a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item number 2, as this item is not needed due to number 3 and number 4, as well as removal of closed session number 1. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Any discussion on the changes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Item number 1 is public hearing, consideration of approval of financing of 2024 projects. We need a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion.
A motion to open public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we have a presentation for our finance director, Ms. Warnberg.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public feedback on the county's plans to finance at an amount not to exceed $22 million the acquisition of the Human Services Building, the Carolina Car Wash Building for PCC's use, roof repairs at South Elementary School, and improvements to the Person County Recycling Center in connection with the consolidation of facilities for Person Industries and the Person County Recycling Center. Once this public hearing is closed, I will bring forth other related documents for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. At this point, Madam Clerk, do we have public comments in favor or opposed?
We do not have any individuals, Chairman.
Do not have any speakers. Need a motion then to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried, so no action required there. Let's see, item number 3. Approving the resolution of 2024 LOV's issuance. Ms. Warnberg again.
Now that the public hearing on this item has been closed, I am requesting the board's approval of the final resolution that was included in your agenda packet for the 2024 limited obligation bond issuance in an amount not to exceed $22 million for financing the projects that were presented during the public hearing. As part of this resolution, the board is authorizing county staff to execute and deliver a related deed of trust, a lease and agency agreement with the school board, and other underwriting documents associated with the sale of these bonds. In addition, the resolution designates certain county staff as county representatives to execute final documents and perform certain duties with respect to the financing in its post-closing phase. As stated in the agenda abstract, copies of all documents referenced in the resolution can be made available to any board member upon request. I'll be glad to answer any questions about this document, but if there are none, I would ask that the board approve this resolution as presented.
Any questions from board members? Hearing none, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution for 2024 LOBs as presented.
Motion to adopt and approve?
Still, any discussion? Make sure. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. So item number 4 would be 2024 LOBs capital project ordinance. Ms. Wernberg again.
Also included in your packet is a capital project ordinance for the 2024 LOBS issuance, which after approval allows for the creation of the revenue and expenditure budget in the county's financial system for these projects. Expenditure categories include the acquisition cost for the Human Services and Carolina Pride Car Wash buildings, estimated costs for the recycling center improvements and South Elementary School roofing replacement, contingency set-aside funds for overages if needed, and other costs related to the issuance. The current estimate for this project is $21,122,000, all of which is proposed to be sourced from the limited obligation bonds to be issued at the end of August. The capital project ordinance also includes direction to the CFO and budget officer for the advancement of funds prior to receiving bond proceeds, and direction for reporting the status of project expenditures to the Board of Commissioners. I'll be happy to answer questions about this document, but if there are none, my request for the board is to approve the capital project ordinance as presented.
Board member question, comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve of the 24 LOBs as presented?
Motion to approve the ordinance.
Have a motion on the floor for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your hard work on all this. At this point, in our regular meetings, we do have 10 minutes set aside for public comment, and do we have any, Madam Clerk, signed up?
Yes, sir, we have 2 individuals.
Okay, and those individuals have been provided with information as to how public comments are to be conducted. So who is our first speaker?
Our first speaker is Andrea Childers. IT, can I please instruct you to set the
Morning.
timer for 5 minutes?
Thank you.
My name is Andrea Childers. I've been a resident of Person County for 31 years. After every meeting with you, I think to myself, that's it. I've said all that I know to say. But inevitably, I find out something new, and I feel compelled to speak about it. Recently, I have found out from North Carolina Department of Air Quality that Person County government was not willing to allow a public hearing regarding permit being issued to the Mariah Energy Center. We have been told this because DAQ is a state entity, are not allowed to sign indemnity clauses in rental agreements. Instead, they ask for a waiver from the facility and seek to use state insurance should something unforeseen occur. And the payment of some kind is needed to be covered for whatever purpose. The state does this with all counties all over on a daily basis. Person County, on the other hand, has chosen, for whatever reason, not to do this. So instead of hosting a public hearing at a venue paid for by Person County taxpayer dollars that is affecting Personians about a facility being built in Person County, we are now forced to drive 2 counties away to Vance County, who I might add agreed to the waiver in order for us to testify about our health and our safety. When I tell people from around here stories like this, they are normally stunned in disbelief, and they normally ask, who's on the take? Deep down in my heart, I just can't believe any of you are that corrupt. So I have to believe that you are just uninformed and uneducated about the facts that lead to you continually making these horrible decisions. Just look at this month of record-setting heat, but yet you still want to fill this county with fossil fuels that continue to spew chemicals that contribute to climate change. NOAA just reported $15 billion in extreme weather events already this year, not counting Hurricane Beryl. When these facilities are forced to close down, who is going to fit the decommissioning bill? I'm guessing Person County taxpayers. But of course, you guys haven't looked that far into the future.
Thank you.
Next speaker we have is Katie Moore.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Katie Moore. I've spoken before you a number of times, and Andrea and I are back today to express extreme concern about Person County's decision not to host the DAQ air permit hearing on the Mariah Energy Center. The air permit hearing is the last opportunity for residents and impacted community members to speak about the facility, and we have many serious concerns about this facility that we believe ought to be listened to. Having Person County's refusal to host this hearing meant that it now is located 2 counties away, which for most of the people that we work with is not going to be feasible to get to. We work with a lot of farmers who are very busy this time of year who simply don't have time to drive 2 counties away to give public comment about this facility. You have seen over the course of the last 8 or 9 months that there's a lot of concern about this facility within the community. I think the very minimum that y'all could do is work with the state to make sure that there's a location in Person County that's accessible to your communities who you represent to speak about this project. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes our informal comments.
All right, thank you. Item number 5 is discussion and adjustment approval of the consent agenda as presented. Any discussions, changes? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion's on the floor for approval. Any discussion, further comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. For new business, item number 6, funding request for the Tar River Land Conservancy to purchase Mount Harmony track for preservation and conservation. Mr. John Hill.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
How y'all doing today?
Good, sir.
Good. I'm here this morning with the Tar River Land Conservancy. We've been working on a project of possibly preserving some land in Person County for future environmental and watershed quality purposes. There's a tract of land, 85 acres, in the Mount Terza area that we've been looking at, along with GIS and, of course, our stormwater of Chris Boley. And this tract of land is as we're looking to work with the Tar River Land Conservancy to preserve this land so that it will forever be rural, natural land, help the stormwater qualities, help our watershed, so on and so forth. I can't explain it as good as this crew can. So Derek and Michelle from the Land Conservancy, I'm inviting them up to discuss a little bit with you.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Welcome.
We do have some slides. I don't know if they're there. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Derek Halberg. I'm with Tar River Land Conservancy. Joining me today is Michelle Mound, our land conservation specialist, and one of our board members, Nola Knaus, is in the audience as well, who's a Person County landowner. Next slide, please. Or do we do this? Okay. Just to give you a little background about us before we get into the details about the property that we're hoping to acquire. We are a nonprofit organization, 501c3. We are a land conservation group, land trust. We're one of 22 such groups spread across North Carolina. Our territory happens to include Person County. We've been doing this work for about 24 years as a group, and we've had more activity in other counties, but we're hoping that this project will lead to more opportunities to work with landowners to preserve rural areas here in Person County. We're headquartered in Franklin County. We're guided by a board of directors, and we have a professional staff. Next slide, please. Like any of the land conservancies spread across North Carolina, we have a variety of objectives that we try to achieve in the work that we're doing. Drinking water, of course, is a big driver for everyone in North Carolina, and this project has a lot of aspects to it that are directly related to drinking water protection. Next slide. Our organization, again, has been doing land conservation work for the last 24 years, and we've preserved, across the 8 counties we work in, over 23,700 acres. One of the focus areas, even though our name is Tar River Land Conservancy, has been in the Falls Lake watershed in the Upper Neuse River Basin. And we've had a little success here in Person County on a conservation easement project, again on Nola's and her family farm on the Flat River here in Person County. And we've acquired another tract on the Flat River. But most of our success so far to date in the Falls watershed has been in Granville County, and there's a number of reasons for that. But we're hoping that we'll be able to pick up some momentum and do some more work over here, particularly if we're able to partner with you all. One of the things that acquisition of land in the Falls watershed has allowed us to do is actually work with local governments and county government in Granville County to open up some of our properties to the public for hiking trails, and the property we're going to talk to you about here in a second is in fact one of those that we're hoping to replicate that model here in Person County. We have about 11 miles that are open in the Creedmoor, Butner, and Stem areas, not too far from here, and we have a lot of folks from Person County who enjoy that. Next slide. I'm going to let Michelle give you some details about the property.
All right, as John said, this is in the Mount Tirzah community. This has been in a family for multiple generations since at least the 1920s. It's still owned by them, so to give us a chance to preserve a piece of Person County history. It is about 85 acres, and we call it the Mount Harmony Tract. It is located on Mount Harmony Church Road. It was put up for sale in October of 2023 until we got a contract with the landowners. Next slide. As you can see by the map, the majority of the property is forested. There's hardwood buffers along a lot of the streams on the property, along with pine stands as well. It's about a mile to Mount Tirzah Ballpark and about 11 miles to Roxborough. There is a small, about 6 acres of agricultural fields that are currently fallow but had been recently used by a local farmer. There is about 7,300 feet of streams, which includes 2,200 feet of Rockfort Branch, which is a tributary of Deep Creek. There is some liability on the property. There's a lot of debris and trash that I'll show you later in some pictures that we will be cleaning up on the property. Next slide. Some pictures of the property. The top left corner is that Rock Fork Branch. Beautiful, rocky, about 15 to 20 feet wide in some areas. The top right is the road frontage on the property. This will be sort of where, if in the future we turn this into a nature reserve, where we'll have a road going into parking. Bottom left is some of the tributaries on the property. They do crisscross the property. It's absolutely beautiful. The bottom right is going to be the agricultural field that's located on the property. Next slide. This slide just shows some of the liabilities. We have budgeted for and granted funding for the cleanup of this property already. There's a lot of household trash that we'll clean up, along with some abandoned boats and vehicles, and some buildings that will have to be taken down just for a liability standpoint. Next slide.
So this is a project that all told will be about $626,000. It includes not only the purchase price or the payment to the landowners, but also, as Michelle mentioned, the cleanup of some of the liabilities associated with the property. It's not uncommon on the projects that we work on for us to encounter areas that may have been places where farmers left things over the years, but we certainly try to take care of those from an environmental and safety standpoint. We also will cover, through our fundraising, the legal cost, as well as putting money into our long-term stewardship endowment. Every conservancy that's accredited nationally, including us, has an endowment that helps cover the cost for us to manage our properties long-term. And we have a legal defense fund in case there's ever an issue that we need to utilize some lawyers' time to be able to help us resolve. We'll put money into that fund as well. Because we're a nonprofit organization, we can often negotiate sales with landowners below market rate, and that was the case in this situation. Thankfully, the family agreed to a sale of $84,000 below the appraised value, which has been very helpful in us being able to leverage that willingness from the landowners to get grant funding from 2 watershed programs downstream from Raleigh and Durham. We've had long success in being able to secure grants, and they have great confidence in us in being able to deliver projects that we present to the watershed folks down in Durham and Raleigh. In quick order, in March and April, when we submitted applications to their programs, we got a funding commitment, which was wonderful. Based on our conversations with John and the county manager and her team, we settled on proposed ask of Person County of $50,000, or the last 8% that we would need to be able to cover all of our current foreseen costs to be able to acquire the property. I do want to note this is not necessarily going to cover anything related to improving the property for public access. That'll come later, but it will get us to the point where we're able to make good on the contract we have with the family to acquire the land and be ready to move into planning for the public access. Next slide, please. Why should Person County want to invest in a project like this? Well, as John mentioned, it's our understanding that this will help the county towards its stormwater investment obligations under the IAIA rules, which we're aware of as an organization because there's other jurisdictions who've invested some of our projects based on those funding obligations.
Excuse me.
As the budget showed in the previous slide, a very significant portion of the overall cost and financial obligations for the project are to come from out of the county. And we always try to deliver as much as we can for these counties that we work in coming from elsewhere. We are looking through this project to kind of preserve a property that's been rural and has been in the hands of a family for many generations, and to keep it that way. As part of our funding commitments to Raleigh and Durham, we need to put deed restrictions on this land in the form of a conservation easement, and our proposal is that Person County would be the holder of that conservation easement, almost like an insurance plan, to make sure 20, 30, 50 years from now, in fact, it remains a conservation property and off limits to development. That's what the other investors want, and certainly we know you would want to have that as well. If we're able to complete this project, acquire it, and to set it on the course for public access, our hope is that we can replicate that model elsewhere here in Person County. We've been able to do that in Granville County, and there's been a lot of great interest in us doing that from the county commissioners there. Last slide. So we've got a track record of delivering on these projects. This will be the first opportunity for us to collaborate with you all. We're very excited about it. Our board of directors is very excited for us to be able to propose this to you all tonight. We've been very grateful to the county manager and her team for their feedback and guidance as we've worked through the idea of this project. We do have a proposed resolution that we drafted up based upon resolutions that we've been able to use in other projects for your consideration. So with that, we'll be glad to take questions. But Mr. Chairman, we do hope you would consider the resolution that was included in your packet.
Thank you. Board member questions?
Yeah, I do. A couple. John, has anybody walked this property, been on it and walked it, surveyed it? So not really surveyed, but walked and looked at everything?
So me and Michelle and Sally walked the property and took a look at it. It's a nice property. You know, it's very rural. It's one of those properties in Person County that you would probably want to keep nice countryside. And it's kind of a gem, you know, stuck in the middle of Mount Terza. complements the parks, complements the surrounding rural area. But yeah, we have walked the property. I actually had to hobble back. I don't know if you remember, I hurt my back, and they actually had to send me back to the truck. But yeah, we've been on the property.
My next question is, when I look at the pictures of the property, one of them, it has an old barn. Is there any possibility of restoring that barn, keeping it up, or has anybody looked at that? I hate to see a barn, our old barns get tore down if we can save them.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we did talk about while we were walking the property. I know from a liability standpoint, the Tar River Land Conservancy would probably want that barn off of there, but I would say that we would probably like to work with neighboring organizations, so on and so forth, to possibly keep those barns in Person County. I've seen barns move to other farms. I've seen barns move to other historical sites, and this would be a good opportunity to start that conversation. On the property itself would be a little bit of a liability if eventually it turned into a public site where people can go use it.
Question, after securing this, if it's approved and done, long-term, it's perpetual.
That's right.
So does the county come into this in any way as far as maintenance, upkeep? Who's gonna take care of it?
What we would like to see is that the same model that Tar River uses in Granville County. It's a nature preserve, and correct me there if I'm wrong.
Right.
It's a nature preserve. It's allowed, public access is allowed on it, but it's controlled or operated by the Tar River Land Conservancy. That's the benefit of having a land preserve in your backyard and not necessarily your Parks and Recreation Department operating it. And the good thing about that is there are partnerships that we can build, through volunteerism, through Friends of the Parks, through other organizations to help the Tar River maintain, keep the property maintained.
So John is absolutely correct. In Granville County, the way we've designed these preserves has been with minimal infrastructure. The intention is not to create a place where we have lots of buildings, bathroom facilities, these sorts of things that are going to require a lot of maintenance. Our objective is to try to create a place where people can park, possibly 8 to 10 vehicles, maybe a little more if the site would allow for it, and then have somewhere between 2 and 3 miles of trails through the woods. Between our staff and a group of volunteers, we are able to keep up with all of our 11 miles of hiking trails in Granville County without any need for significant support from the county. We certainly work closely with the Sheriff's Department to keep an eye on the trail parking areas after dark, but the model has proven to be a good one. But this is, quite honestly, one of the more robust recreational programs of the counties that we work in, and we recognize that John may want to figure out how to incorporate a place like this into his future planning for recreational opportunities in the county, and we will leave that door open.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is strictly for hiking, and we won't have to worry about ATVs or anything like that getting on the property.
We'll work with Tar River to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, and of course, we do have to have, just like the other big park project out in Mount Terza area, we have to work with law enforcement, wildlife, we have to work with our other safety organizations to make sure that there's a plan in place, and Tar River is at the center of that with our safety organizations that put that plan in place. The ATV things, none of that will be allowed. It will be all single track hiking. And then of course, we would try to work with them to help them create the buffers needed to keep that at bay.
And let me add, because the lion's share of the money, of course, is coming from the downstream communities who are interested first and foremost because of their money in watershed protection, they bought into the idea of hiking, pedestrian uses of these types of sites, but horseback riding or ATV use is a little bit much if you're trying to justify watershed protection on a attractive land like this.
Mm-hmm.
Why this particular piece of property?
Well, it was for sale, first of all. We've been looking at a number of tracts of land in Person County. We get to work with landowners who want to work with us, and certainly the ones that are most interested in selling are those who have put their land on the market. We reach out and talk to a lot of landowners whose property is not currently on the market, and sometimes those conversations can take years to kind of materialize in terms of a project. But I think it's safe to say that there are folks out there who would be interested in working with us, but they are, I think, cautious about waiting to see if we're able to do the same sort of thing we've done in other counties in Person County before they make a decision.
And what would be your anticipated timeline to have the property cleaned up?
The cleanup part,
Mm-hmm.
probably within a month or two of the actual closing, we'll be talking to different contractors, getting some bids. Of course, is weather dependent, because you can't get in there and do a whole bunch more damage to the site if you're trying to get old cars. I think there's 4 boats out there, so we're gonna have to work with the family. Those vehicles, those things that are registered to somebody else, if they've been abandoned, they'll have to be, salvage titles. So it's a little bit of a process, but certainly from our standpoint, we're hoping it'll be within a couple of months.
And would y'all be absorbing 100% of the cost for the cleanup?
Yes, that has been budgeted, and the city of Raleigh has included that in their grant award to us.
In your conservancy, you do have a board of directors.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
You want to hear from one of them?
Sure, but
Okay.
at the same time, would someone from Person County possibly be added to that board of directors?
We'd love to entertain, but we have a individual whose family goes back to many generations. I'll let her
Good
tell
morning,
you.
I'm Nola Canals. I'm a descendant of the J.G. Chambers family from Timberlake from many years ago. We know that that property has been in my family's ownership for at least since the 19th century, possibly earlier. I live in Winston-Salem, but we are still officially, my family's officially the landowners of close to 100 acres along the Flat River and Highway 501 South. We did starting as early as 2009, 2010, we began investigating what was going to be the long-term future of that property. My sister and I, we are the only children. We have no children. We have a lot of cousins, but we weren't sure the cousins would be able to manage the property. So my sister reached out to the Tar River Land Conservancy as early as probably 15 years ago. We didn't do anything until about 4 or 5 years ago. We reinitiated the conversation. At that time, I did some digging into the Land Conservancy. I'm not much conservation specialist, but I had 30 years of experience as the executive director of a nonprofit organization. So I know nonprofit management fairly well, fundraising, budgeting, finance, liability issues, accreditation, et cetera, et cetera. This organization has their act together. I was extremely impressed. So in 2021, we went ahead and signed a conservation easement on the property that will prohibit further development in perpetuity. I became convinced that this organization was going to be around in the long run, and their documents did state the fact that should the unthinkable happen and this organization is not there anymore, all of their properties are stewarded by other accredited land organizations. So they have got their act together. They do the nonprofit thing very well. Derek had mentioned to my sister and me if either of us was interested in board membership sometime, basically because of the homework we did, we should reach out. I did about 1.5 years ago. I have joined the board in February of 2023 and have found it an extremely positive experience. I may sound prejudiced, but this organization acts with integrity. And I have been with a lot of nonprofits that don't. We are convinced enough that the integrity of this organization and our conviction is strong enough that we have since formed a land trust that now officially owns our 100 acres. When my sister and I and her husband and my husband, when the last one of us standing is no longer standing, our property will become the property of the Tar River Land Conservancy. Thank you for your time. I encourage you to support this activity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I just, with comments made, I understand when you have property, it's been in your family for so long, and you want to see it remain and stay, the property and the woods and the fields, and be able to have trails. I understand how important that would be to you, and I am all for it, so thank you.
I have to say that as soon as we signed the conservation easement, my first impulse was to go to the farm and hug it. But how do you hug 100 acres of land? I hugged some trees.
And I would also like to say too, speaking for this organization, Person County, I first started working with this organization 24 years ago. And that's when I first met Derek, and they were making this document of significant wildlife and species and land in Person County. I don't know if y'all remember that document. The document that they put together at the time, with the help of Derek, has gained Person County millions of dollars in grant support. We took that particular document and it's been supported the grants that we turned in over the years. So, this is a great opportunity to continue working with a great organization. And I think it's a great way to preserve Person County. I mean, we're all about preserving land, and, preserving the heritage and history. So that's the goal of the park system. That's the goal of Tar River, and I think that's the goal of most people in Person County.
I'd like to question or ask or comment. I assume this property will be posted. There will be no hunting.
So we'll post it with the standard posted signs as part of our acquisition, because we'll need to keep folks off of it, everybody off of it for some period of time. Once it's open to the public, we'll take the posted signs down, but there'll be signage all around the entire property that makes clear that it's open to the public, but not for hunting and not for ATV use specifically is our signage. But we'll try to make that specific transition about the time that we're going to have a ribbon cutting with you all at the site.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. We've been doing it long enough. We've learned the hard way. You gotta make sure you do these things in the right order.
Appreciate your efforts there. And Manager Kathy, we're all aware of our obligations to the state for watershed requirements, and we do have funding set aside in your proposal. There is to pay our share of that out of those funds, is that correct?
Correct. Within our stormwater fund, which is funded through the stormwater fees that are paid along with property taxes each year, we have a balance of $575,194 in that account. We already have some commitments to developing the county farm property, as well as some work at the Sportsplex. And beyond that, we still have that fund balance that exists. So my recommendation is that we appropriate $50,000 from the stormwater fund balance towards the acquisition of this property.
Okay, we've all heard the presentation as well as the funding possibility. Any other questions here? Anybody? Here none. Do we have a motion related to this request?
Motion to approve the funding for this tract of land. Where the number's at?
$50,000, Mr. Commissioner.
Okay.
And,
Motion to approve.
Mr. Palmer, if I could, just to make sure the record's clear, there's a resolution in your agenda packet. If you could just reference the resolution, sir.
Okay, let me go back.
Thank
to
you, sir.
start point. Can somebody else pick this up?
Well, the recommended action is to approve the resolution to contribute funding to Tar River Land Conservancy for the purchase of the Mount Harmony tract, as well as a stormwater fund balance appropriation in the amount of $50,000.
So that's what I just said.
What he just said. Okay. Madam Clerk, you all right with the
Yes, sir.
motion? Any other discussion, questions? Here none, do I have a motion Or do we have approval? I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
for
Chairman. Thank
taking
you,
our land.
Commissioners.
Thank you, John.
Wonderful.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it, Bill.
Item number 7 on the agenda is appointment of interim chief financial officer, Manager Kathy.
Well, we will be facing the retirement of our Chief Financial Officer, Amy Warenberg, at the end of this month. And we have a Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Assistant Chief Financial Officer, Tracy Clayton, who is very experienced here with Person County, who has agreed to assume the role as interim finance officer while we continue our search for a permanent Chief Financial Officer. So my recommendation is that the board approve her interim appointment today and administer the oath of office so that that will become effective August 1st upon the retirement of Amy.
Okay, we need a motion to adopt the resolution appointing Tracy Clayton as interim finance officer.
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we adopt the resolution appointing an interim finance officer and administer the oath of office to Ms. Clayton.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. So, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. At this time, we will go ahead and administer the oath to Ms. Clayton if she'll step forward. I, Tracy Clayton,
I, Tracy Clayton,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States,
and the laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain,
maintain,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and laws of said state,
and laws of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and knowledge,
and knowledge,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Person County Interim Chief Financial Officer.
as Person County Interim Chief Financial Officer.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for
Thank you.
being willing to step in. I was in a shopping mall the other day and I saw our soon-to-be ex-finance officer, and she was looking at dresses. And I walked up behind her and I asked her, "Are you shopping for clothing for your going away party?" She said no. But anyway, Amy, thanks to both of you. Congratulations to both of you. Opposing, congratulations, but again, thank you. Okay. Item number 9 on the agenda is order to collect taxes. Mr. Jones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a couple of items for you this morning, and I have a PowerPoint to share with you, if IT can pull that for us. First off is the 2023 tax collector settlement. IT.
What's wrong with that screen back there?
So the tax collector settlement, you wonder what that might be. That is an order by general statute 105-373 that says we must settle the taxes for the current year before we move forward with the next year. So this is a simple settlement, kind of makes up for what auditors is getting ready to work on. This shows where we ended up in the current year, and then we can start working on next year. So moving right on into the numbers, I took and split the different levies between three different groups, 2 of which are collected in my office and a third which is collected by DMV. When you take out the public service, which is your utility companies, your power plants, your gas companies, your telephone companies, your railroads, we come up with 99.29% collection rate. Since the public service is such a big figure in Person County, I always like to break that out and show that as a 100% collection rate. So all the public utilities always historically have paid. We've never had an issue with any of the public utilities ever being late. Motor vehicles has done a great job since we changed in 2013, which is when you started paying your taxes and tags together. Used to be we had a low 90%, maybe even 88% collection rate on motor vehicles. But when they changed that, you paid your taxes, your registration all together, that raised that rate. The hopes at the beginning would be a 100% collection rate, but there are some things in there for some bad checks paid to DMV and some temporary registration plates where I had a tag and I had time to pay my taxes because of the new tag issued to me. And that brings it down just below that 100%. So 99.29, 100%, and 99.93. By combining all three of those categories together, Person County comes up with a 99.47% collection rate. Pretty outstanding rate. It's the highest Person County's ever received. And that's due to several things. It's due to having a great group of citizens. The taxpayers who receive the bills take care of those bills. Before we start any kind of delinquent notice, any kind of collection remedies, we're already at 93%. So the citizens do a great job. Another part of it is, even though this is collector settlement, it involves all my staff. The appraisers have to do their job in order to have a bill that's understandable, a bill that's defendable. The listing department on personal property do the same thing. And then, of course, the collectors who have the ultimate job of collecting it. We've had some retirements in the office, and because of that, all my collectors are pretty new. My collection supervisor is the most senior collector we have other than myself. He's been there for 5 years. His second most senior person has been there less than 2 years, and the newest less than 1 year. So brand new staff achieved the highest collection rate we've ever had. The adjusted rate is interesting. You probably wonder what in the world that is. It's a way of pulling out the bankruptcies. And this year it didn't matter because we only had $9,500 worth of bills that were in bankruptcy. So if somebody's in bankruptcy, we can't touch them. We have to work with the banks. All their money's protected. So we take out the tax bills, we take out the uncollected bills, and this time it didn't make a difference. Now, years ago, we had a large bankruptcy. It did make a difference. But because it was such a small number, that was very insignificant for this year. I always show that because we had that big bankruptcy, we would want to show what that did to us. And if we compare the 5 years in a row, this is the third year we have made 99% overall. And you see that 100% collection rate for public service. You see your motor vehicles running at that 99.8, 99.9% collection rate. You see the 2022 at 98.15, that one large year of bankruptcy. That bankruptcy was, however, collected on July 5th next year, just a few days later after the year closed out, so no big deal there. This shows the 3 years of 99%. 99.47 is the highest we've ever collected in Person County. We had this internal goal of wanting to make 99.5. We actually made that 12 days late. So July 12th, we were at 99.5. So it's just a matter of timing. It's almost impossible to get 99.5% collection rate in any industry. How we get there? So your delinquent notice is the first thing that goes out, and that helps with people who just forgot or thought their bank was going to pay it. Maybe they paid their loan off or refinanced. Advertising continues to be a great tool. When we mail out tax bills, people immediately call. They don't want to know when it's due or when it's past due. They want to know when's it going in the paper. So that is a great tool to collect taxes. The week before it goes in the paper, the collections go up. People don't want the name in the paper. Garnishment is our third thing we use. Garnishment is, we try to do the least painful for the taxpayer. How can we get the money collected without causing a rift in their life? So garnishment takes 10% of their gross wages. So we do that wherever we can. We do about 1,600 of those in one big batch. If we can't find where they're working, bank attachment is the next one. We do about 300 of those in one big batch, and that actually takes all the funds available to pay their taxes. So we try to use garnishment first. That's a little easier. We use NC Cash, which is where you go on a state website, see if there's any money left that you didn't know about. We actually use that on deceased people. So your death and taxes, we collect income from dead people, which is kind of a funny idea. Debt set off, anytime you get more than a $50 tax refund from the North Carolina Department of Revenue, not federal, or you have lottery winnings over 600, we can claim those monies. So we are trying that also. Payment arrangements is probably the most effective thing we do is when people come in and say, I can't pay it, I forgot, or I had medical. If they come up with a payment arrangement that will get them in a better situation within the next few months, we definitely want to work with them on that. And the final thing, of course, is foreclosure. We have about 100 pieces of property in foreclosure at all times. We sell about a dozen. People normally don't lose their property to tax foreclosure. They understand once it gets in an attorney's hands that it needs to be taken care of. So we try not to do a lot of those, but sometimes that's the last result. And sometimes that's what the family needs. If it's a cloud on the title or a family can't agree on it, we've actually had family members say, please foreclose on a property so we can change ownership. So that sounds like a negative, but sometimes it's not. So we talk about collecting property taxes, which was a little bit over $40 million this year. But there's other things we collect. So we were doing prepayments. So prepayments is people paying the tax bill before it goes out, before it's even generated, before the tax rate's set. And that could be because of real estate closing, proration between buyer and seller. Quite often it's from people on fixed income. So they want to go ahead and start paying every month. They pay in January on next year's taxes. Collection fees or your garnishment fees, your certified letter fees, things like your advertising, we put your name in the paper, we actually are able to charge you for putting your name in the paper for not paying your taxes. We talked about stormwater earlier this morning. That's almost $300,000 in stormwater along with interest. Prior year's taxes, we left a little bit more than $200,000 on the table this year. Last year, we ended up collecting $228,000 of our past due taxes. Animal taxes are almost gone. We got rid of that about 5 or 6 years ago, but we collected $3 more on that. Collected 5.8 for the city, 2.3 for fire tax. All that together, we through the tax office doors, just under $46 million. And those who do math don't add those up because I left out a few of the categories that weren't significant. So that doesn't add up to $46 million, but yeah, $46 million is the total we collected. This is probably my favorite slide. So when you look at 10-year statute of limitation on collecting taxes, you want to write off very little. So back in 2013, we start off with $29 million that we needed to collect. And we're writing off $15,900 of that. So we're writing off 5/100ths of 1%. And actually, it's a little bit less than that because the only thing we're truly not able to collect is that $5,079 for motor vehicles. The other stuff can remain on the books. We can't force collect it. But if someone wants to transfer property and they want to pass clear title, which the buyer wants, they have to pay all past due taxes. So even though it's over 10 years old, we can't garnish, attach a bank account, foreclose. That $10,000 is still reachable if you ever decide you want to sell your real estate. So we're really not writing off hardly anything. Just a couple of things we talked about. Prepayments. We got this ACH debit program that works really well. That's where we started this during COVID. People didn't want to come in the office and make payments. They were afraid of getting sick. We have lots of people with transportation issues, a lot of you seniors. So we can draft their property tax payment both for prepayments and for payment plans. If you're delinquent on taxes and you need help remembering when to pay it, we'll try to set you on a bank draft. So on 15th every month, we're going to grab your money. And that has really gone up over the years. We talked about reappraisal a couple of meetings ago. Real estate market is still about 70% of value, which ends up being like we're going to have to increase the average value 35 to 40%. That's what the real estate market's done since 2021. Gap billing. The gap billing is one that we didn't see coming. Back when we made motor vehicles together with your registration. If you are late renewing and DMV changes your registration, it creates a gap in taxes. So we are collecting those gaps. So sometimes, a lot of times it's only 1 or 2 months. They end up adding another 3,300 bills to what we have to collect. And those are difficult to collect. And we're getting about a 78% collection rate on those. Most of the bills are less than $20. It really is frustrating how much money these little bitty bills add up to be. And it's so frustrating that most counties aren't even collecting these. They're not putting on their books. Only 40 counties are collecting gap bills as required by law. Person County is doing this, but it does hurt our collection rate. So when we look at other counties' collection rates and we try to compare, other counties aren't collecting them, so they're not. Our collection rate would be better if we didn't have them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. E-check's another fun one we've done. When you pay by debit card, credit card, there's a 2.5% collection fee, convenience fee added to the bill. That can be a significant on a large property tax bill for your house. E-check costs $1.50. So people really have embraced that. Over $1 million collected, 1,100 payments just using e-check rather than using a credit card. People call in and say, I want to use my credit card, but it's too expensive. Well, you direct them to the e-check. And it's on our website and it's on the tax bill, so that does work well. And that foreclosure option we mentioned, $117,000 that we collected through foreclosure, that didn't cost the county anything. We have contracted with a firm out of Asheville who does tax office foreclosures only, and that expense is added to the tax bill to be paid by the taxpayer, not by the county. That's in the slide. And do have a couple things. I reached out to other counties to see what their collection rates were. And of course, most counties are doing what I'm doing this morning. They're reporting their collection rate. For our peer counties, our peer county population size, we're 25 to 50,000. We normally end up third or fourth. Dare County, Transylvania County normally beats us, so I think that's going to be the same this year. Reached out to Caswell and Granville as a comparison. Both those counties do not collect gap bills. Caswell, for the first time this year, broke 99%. We're 99.47. Granville was 98.87. So compared to our neighboring counties, we're doing a great job. We do want to make 99.5% one year. We don't want to budget for that because we know how that can fluctuate. But staff have done a great job, especially considering I have mostly new collectors. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have a thank you. Thank you, first off, to the citizens of Person County that do pay their bills. Taxes aren't easy, they're painful, but yet and still our citizens do pay their obligations, and that's good. But it does take quite a bit of effort on your part and your department's part to ensure this and use the resources available to get you to that very high mark. It's commendable, and I would say thank you. I don't know about any other comments.
Great job.
Thank you. Again, it's the staff. It's not me. A lot of my work this year has been on the reappraisal project, so great staff. And tax bills are going out probably this weekend, so midweek next week we'll start the whole process all over again. Do need a motion to accept the report.
Do we need a motion? Yes.
Yes, sir,
We
please.
do need that motion to direct the tax collector to collect taxes for the 2024.
That's actually the next item. This is motion to accept the settlement report, please.
Motion
Yes,
to accept
okay.
the settlement
All
report.
right, item number, yeah, okay. Motion on the floor. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
Okay.
And then item number
Next
9.
item is the order to collect. Now, you can imagine a group of citizens, are employed to be your collectors. They have no power to take someone's paycheck, to take someone's money from the bank account to make taxes get paid without an order from the board. So the next item is an order to collect taxes for 2024 and the delinquent taxes left on the books. I need a motion to collect.
Have a motion,
Motion to collect the owed taxes to Person County.
have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate everything. Item number 10 on the agenda is Stryker ALS 360 funding request. Ms. Wallenberg. Good morning, sir.
More questions? So, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I am here this morning to discuss the current state of our biomedical and patient movement equipment, the urgent need for an asset management plan, and a solution that I believe meets the needs of the department, the citizens we serve, and the county as a whole. in both a fiscally sound and responsible manner. Now, you may wonder why I use the term believe in my earlier statement. I came to Person County in December of 2021 with right at 30 years of emergency medical services experience, the last 20 of which have been in senior leadership positions, to include an organization that was 5 times larger than my current department. Ms. York, who was the county manager at the time when I was hired, told me that I was hired to be a change agent and to assess and fix many issues that plague the current department. After doing an intensive SWOT analysis of the EMS division, there were some significant issues that needed to be addressed, to include personnel, vehicles, training, compensation, and equipment. My belief that the Stryker ALS 360 program is the right solution to address some of the most critical of our equipment needs comes now from 32 years of experience and 16 months of research into this program. Both myself and my team were extremely disappointed that the board opted to remove this from the fiscal year 2024 budget when the need is so obviously high and directly impacts life safety of both citizens that we are charged to serve and the safety of the providers that already put their lives at risk on a daily basis taking care of patients. However, I do appreciate the need to have all the necessary information before making a large financial decision. I welcome this opportunity this morning to discuss with you the program itself and to address any concerns that you may have, so that hopefully you will reach the conclusion that this program needs to be funded immediately. With me this morning is Darren Green, Western and Central North Carolina Sales Associate Manager from Stryker Medical Emergency Care Division, and Meredith Riggs, Stryker Medical Regional Sales Manager for Carolinas and Virginia. They're also here to answer questions that you may have if it is not already covered in the presentation that I've put together. So in the presentation this morning, I want to answer some of the questions that have been raised by you in regards to the program, as well as giving you an overview of the program. Some of the questions we will address is, what is the Stryker ALS 360 Asset Management Program? Why do we need it? Why do we need it now? What are the benefits of the program? Why Stryker and not another vendor? Why is it fiscally advantageous for Person County to fund this program? How does Person County exit the program early if it chooses to do so? And what happens when the program finishes or ends its 10-year term? The biggest 2 reasons that I can give you for this are both safety and risk reduction. In the fire service, where I retired from, there's such a thing as the burning baby argument. And basically, if we don't get our way, we hold up the burning baby and say, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, this is what's going to happen. It's not what I'm doing this morning. What I'm trying to do this morning is present to you the facts as I understand the facts to be, so that you can make an informed decision. We have old and aging out equipment that is and will continue to put the lives of the county at risk if we do not come up with a plan to address it. This plan cannot be a Band-Aid, as it has been so many times in the past. It needs to be comprehensive, it needs to be long-term, and it needs to be sustainable. When I came to you a little over a year ago to discuss the condition of the ambulance fleet, I presented a similar story, and I appreciate that you listened and acted accordingly. The reason the fleet had gotten to the point was years of mismanagement, and no structured fleet replacement plan was in place. There was also no structured maintenance plan. So repairs were often not done correctly, preventive maintenance was often non-existent, and the fleet aged to an unacceptable level with no regular plan for replacement or rotation. We are facing largely the same issues with our biomedical and patient movement fleet, but in my SWOT analysis that I mentioned earlier, the fleet was a higher priority that had to get fixed first. However, we are at the point now that we must address this other sleeping dragon. If we do not, it will bite us all. So why is this needed and why now? Biomedical equipment and patient movement equipment has defined service lives. This is deemed through the FDA and through the manufacturer. For the purposes of the discussion today, our equipment, our patient movement equipment, has a 7-year service life. That's our stretchers, our ambulance load systems, and our stair chairs. Our biomedical equipment has an 8-year service life. That's our cardiac monitors, defibrillators, automatic external defibrillators, CPR, chest compression devices. So you may ask yourself, why does this matter? We are far from DC and the FDA. The manufacturers of this equipment have to present their plans and data to the FDA. The FDA establishes an expected service life for all medical equipment. If we have a patient or a provider injured or killed while using a piece of equipment, or a piece of equipment fails to operate as it should when needed to deliver life-saving care that has exceeded its service life, even with proper maintenance from the manufacturer, that manufacturer can say that they are not liable because they clearly state in their product literature that the expected service life is of their equipment. It is as simple and as complicated as that. If we continue to use old equipment that has exceeded its service life, we are liable. At that point, it's up to the lawyers to fight it out and determine liability, but I would tell you that it's probably not an argument we're going to win. More importantly, though, is the human cost. And then not to mention the ethical and moral responsibility of us as a government entity for allowing it to happen with full knowledge of the problem and the potential consequences. So let's talk about the age of our fleet. First, we're going to look at our biomedical fleet. Our cardiac monitors, defibrillators are at year 6 of their 8-year service life. Our Lucas chest compression devices are at year 6 of their 8-year service life. Our automatic external defibrillators are at year 10 plus of their 8-year service life. So to break that down for you, 8 of our 9 cardiac monitors are at the end of their 6-year lease. And yes, I used the word lease, and we're going to talk about that further. 3 of our Lucas devices are at the end of their 6-year lease, and 35 of our 44 AEDs are over 10 years old. Of those AEDs, we have had 2 failures in the last 18 months. Fortunately, it was not during patient care. Fortunately, those failures occurred during routine testing, and we were able to discover that those AEDs were no longer serviceable. But that could have been a completely different situation had it been discovered while being used during patient care. So let's talk about cardiac monitors. We currently carry what's called a LifePak 15 Generation 4 cardiac monitor defibrillator. It's shown on the screen to my left. We use these monitors, I would estimate, on 85% or more of our calls. Why does this matter? It matters because failure is not an option. Every ambulance only carries one of these devices. There is no backup. None of our first responder agencies carry these. There is no backup. If this device fails because it's not been maintained properly or it's exceeded its service life, there is no backup. So if we're using this device for patient care and something happens and we have an untoward event, which means the patient suffers irreparable harm from our lack of ability to deliver care, we are liable. But I also want to bring up another issue. To the screen on the right is the LifePak 35. LifePak 35 is a brand new cardiac monitor defibrillator. It was released in April of 2024. This is a completely new cardiac monitor. Because we have been in negotiations with Stryker now for about 16 months, they are willing to let us purchase LifePak 15 Generation 4s versus the LifePak 35s, which were released in April. That offer goes away in October. Why is that important? Well, one is because of cost. The LifePak 15 Generation 4 costs about $43,000. That's our current price. Add accessories to it, it's around $46,000 to $47,000. The new LifePak 35 defibrillators, depending on options and accessories, are between $70,000 to $80,000. So we have an opportunity now to purchase LifePak 15s at that current price, and that current price sticks. But we could purchase LifePak 35s if we'd like. But why would we not do that? So I talked about experience. So in the military, we have a saying that says, sometimes you want to be first, you want to be the pointy end of the spear. Well, sometimes when you're the pointy end of the spear, you get bloody. So I was with an agency that decided they wanted to be first. And they adopted an earlier version of a LifePak monitor called a LifePak 11. And we were one of the very first agencies in the United States to adopt that monitor. We put it into service. We had software issues, we had accessory issues, we had provider ergonomic issues. It's not that it was a bad device, it was just untested. So I do not want to put our citizens and our providers in a situation where we would buy brand new technology off the shelf that's not been tested out in the field yet. Now, again, I know my Stryker people don't want me to say that, but I'm just being honest, that's my experience. And I've been doing it longer than him, so I can say that. So I would not at this time advocate purchasing LifePak 35s until they've got some road time under them and have been tested. Just again, it's based on my experience. I'd like for you to keep those price points in mind because they're going to become important later in the presentation. AEDs, we currently have about 6 different versions of AEDs in the system. Those are spread out between county public safety agencies, law enforcement, fire departments, EMS, and county government buildings. As stated before, the ones in county buildings are well past their end of service life by 2 to 3 years. The volunteer fire departments are a mixed bag of types and ages of equipment, and as the department held responsible by the state of North Carolina for the county EMS plan, we have no oversight on this equipment whatsoever. The problems are lack of standardization, equipment that is not compatible, lack of ability to transfer patient data, and increased logistical costs trying to maintain equipment for all these different devices. So let me give you a scenario. Allensville Fire Department goes out to a cardiac arrest in their district. They respond on scene, they put the patient on their AED, which is not compatible with the AEDs carried by EMS. EMS arrives on scene, we have to pause patient care to take those pads off of that patient to put our pads on the patient. So there's now a gap in patient care. We're successful. We resuscitate the patient, we get a pulse back on the patient, we transport the patient to the hospital. But unfortunately, all that data that happened from when Allensville showed up to when we put the patient on our machine, we have no access to that data because their machines are not compatible with our data system. It's important to the ED and to the cardiologist to know what was the causative factor of that arrest. We have no way of presenting that data. By moving the volunteer fire departments over to LifePak 1000s, those machines are now compatible with our data collection system. We can pull that data down, and it gives the cardiologist and the emergency department a seamless picture of patient care. I already mentioned the logistical issues, trying to keep up with that type of equipment, and we're going to talk about performance improvement later in the presentation. But let's talk about patient movement equipment. The age of our patient movement fleet is in worse condition than our biomedical fleet, to be completely honest with you. 4 of our stretchers are at 6 years of their 7-year service life, so they're entering their 7th year right now. 1 is currently in year 7 of its service life, and 1 is at year 8 of its 7-year service life. Of our load systems, 5 are at year 6, and 1 is at year 7. Again, why does that matter? Our power stretchers are battery powered and mechanically driven. As all of you know, mechanics fail at some point, right? So imagine that you're elevated like it shows in this picture right here, and the mechanics fail. That stretcher is going to the ground with you on it. Or one of our providers is going to try to catch that thing while it's falling, leading to provider injuries. That's why these things have to be maintained and why we can't allow them to exceed their service life. Our power load systems, again, is demonstrated in that picture for you. It's basically, it's hard to see in that picture, it's a set of forks that come out from the back of the stretcher. It detaches onto the stretcher undercarriage and assists in pulling that stretcher into the back of the ambulance. Again, if there is a failure, potentially we could cause patient harm. We have already had 1 significant within this past year of a load system failure. We had a significant patient call. We pulled the stretcher out of the ambulance to load the patient in. The load system failed. We could not load the stretcher back into the ambulance. It caused about a 25-minute delay waiting for another ambulance to get on scene so we could transport the patient. Fortunately, in that case, there was no untoward patient effect, and that stretcher and that load system were still within their service life and maintenance plan. So we were covered from a liability standpoint. But there was reputational harm. That occurred in a public location. Lots of people saw that we were unable to get the stretcher into the ambulance. there was some reputational harm caused by that incident. One of our other primary pieces of patient movement equipment is what we refer to as a stair chair. This is a chair with wheels. It's used to get patients up and down steps and maneuver in tight situations. We use this piece of equipment regularly. Again, every single one of our stair chairs has exceeded its service life. So imagine you're sitting in that chair, we're carrying you down a flight of steps, and we have a failure on that chair. What's going to happen? To you, what's going to happen to the providers who are trying to keep that chair afloat? So it boils down to risk reduction. If we have an equipment failure and it results in significant patient or provider harm, and it can be proved that it was due to our improper management, we are liable. It's that plain and simple. When we talk about EMS risk reduction, EMS consistently ranks as one of the riskiest jobs in the United States. EMS workers are 3 times more likely to get hurt and experience lost work days than all private industry workers. Again, that includes construction workers, mining workers. They have a higher sustainment rate of musculoskeletal injury issues from patient handling. And then we got water on it. The economic cost is there for you. In healthcare, it's about $20 billion per year. Each individual back sprain carries an anticipated direct medical cost of $18,000 in physician and medical bills, lost income, and employer costs. Those are real statistics that impact real people. And I'm going to give you 2 real-world examples from my experience. In a previous agency that I was responsible for, we had a young female provider that had a catastrophic shoulder injury. This ended her career. The doctors and lawyers said it was a repetitive injury caused from years of picking up stretchers and moving patients. She was compensated close to $6 million and medically retired. That $6 million was paid by that county for this person's injury. The next year, we purchased power loads and stretchers to outfit our fleet at the cost of $6 million. So we ended up paying basically $12 million, which should have cost us $6 million, and maybe potentially saved this person's career and their quality of life. My uncle was a paramedic in Worcester, Massachusetts for 19 years. He was eligible for full retirement at year 20. At year 19 and 4 months, he had a stretcher failure, blew out 4 vertebrae in his lumbar spine, and ended his career. He was also an avid horseback rider, ended that as well. These are real injuries that occur that we're responsible for trying to prevent, if at all possible. Aside from risk reduction, there are other things. Recruitment and retention are big ones. People are attracted to good equipment, new technologies. It demonstrates that agencies in the county care. Our providers want equipment that's safe to use, and that is technologically up to date. Clinical relevance. In 2019, our current monitors were built in 2019. In 2019, we had the iPhone 11. We now currently have the iPhone 15. I'm just using that as an example. Technology changes rapidly. We need to make sure that we're remaining clinically relevant and we're keeping up with the technology as it changes. 30 years of experience, I can tell you there are things that I did 20, even 10 years ago medically that we now know probably was not clinically the right thing to do. Technology and science is changing and we have to stay on top of it. We need to make sure our biomedical equipment keeps us clinically relevant. And fiscally sound budgeting practices and cost savings. Lease is not a 4-letter word. We are currently leasing our equipment. In fact, our lease ends this year. This is not uncommon. Every EMS agency I've been associated with has leased equipment at one level or another. We currently lease 8 of our cardiac monitors and 3 of our Lucas CPR devices. The lease actually ended last year. It was a 5-year lease. Stryker graciously extended it 1 additional year because we were already in discussions with them about this program. The fiscal sense to the ALS 360 program is that it allows us to budget responsibly over a 10-year program, one fixed and known payment as part of an operational budget, versus having spikes in the budget trying to replace equipment as it ages out. This practice does not work as demonstrated by our current fleet. It is the same issue we have seen with the ambulance fleet. We must have a steady and predictable plan. So why now? One is to get ahead of the technology cost increases and the market fast forces that are driving our cost upward. We've already discussed the LifePak 15s, $43,000 to $47,000 versus $70,000 to $80,000. But what we have seen since 2021 is price increases that, at least in my career, I've not seen happen so rapidly. Recently, Commissioner Sims attended a Fire Chiefs Association meeting where I brought this very issue up to the fire chiefs. In some of our equipment and consumables, we have seen over a 40% increase in cost over the past year. That's not sustainable. And so we need to make sure that we're being good stewards of the public's funds and make sure that we're using this equipment wisely. Although the next two slides, I'm going to show you price increases from Stryker, rest assured that this is an industry-wide trend. This is not just Stryker uniquely. Their two main competitors are doing exactly the same thing. So when we look at Stryker capital price increases from 21 to 23, and I started with 2021 because that's when I came to Person County. These are the increases that we have seen. The LifePak 15 is our current cardiac monitor. We've seen an 18% increase. The Lucas chest compression device, we've seen a 24% increase. The LP1000, which is an AED, we've seen a 29% increase. CR2s, which is a different type of AED, but we would use those in county buildings, we've seen a 34% increase. Power load system, 24% increase, and the power stretcher, we've seen a 27% increase. That is just in the last 2 years. It is anticipated that Stryker will have another scheduled capital price increase in October, though this has not officially been announced yet. And then we look at our Stryker maintenance price increases. We've seen the same type of increases in a maintenance cost. Consistently, we've seen a 21% increase over this time period. Between capital cost and maintenance cost, there is no indication that this is not going to continue, that we will continue to see these increases on an annual or semi-annual basis. By adopting the ALS 360 program, we lock in our prices at today's market price, and our costs do not increase over the next 10 years. Just looking at this slide right here with a 21% market increase in 2 years, extrapolate that over 10 years, you're looking at a 105% increase in costs just for maintenance. So why choose Stryker? I'm going to go back to my experience. I've been a Stryker user and customer for over 30 years, long before it was Stryker when it was called Physio Control. Stryker bought Physio Control. Physio Control has been making cardiac monitors for over 60 years, and I personally have probably purchased about 150 of those monitors over my career. There are really only two other major competitors in this emergency cardiac care space for EMS. I've used both of their products. I currently use one of their products in my other job. But what I can tell you from my experience is the reliability, dependability, service and support from Physio Control and Stryker has been exceptional. But why else? Stryker is the only company in this space that does both biomedical emergency care equipment and patient movement equipment. There are other biomedical care companies out there, but they don't do patient movement equipment. So Stryker is the only company out there that allows us to bundle both of these technologies into one and give us one steady price, one steady maintenance plan. They are on state contract, so the state has already vetted them and negotiated pricing with them, so there is no need to go to RFP because they're already on state contract. Our providers know and trust Stryker's products. If we went with another device from a different manufacturer, we would have to retrain all of our people with new equipment, and that cost would be substantial. Not to mention our people, we would also have to train all of our first responder partners on how to use our equipment as well. Again, that comes at a substantial cost for us to do that. We've already spent considerable money on accessories and consumables that if we move away from Stryker products that are not compatible, that money would just be wasted. If we went with a different stretcher and load system, and there is another contender in the market, that money would just, that would lead to retrofitting all of our trucks, leading to increased costs, downtime while the trucks are being fitted with new equipment, and a myriad of electrical issues due to changing out load systems, wiring harnesses on a truck that was built for Stryker equipment. So if we agree that Stryker is the prudent thing to do, then why the ALS 360 management program? We're going to talk about each of these in a little bit of detail, but one is fleet management. The Stryker 360 program gives us a comprehensive fleet management system for both biomedical and patient transport equipment. We have fixed annual payments. Our payments will be fixed for the next 10 years. By being fixed annual payments, we can budget for that accordingly. Those fixed annual payments are guaranteed not to increase per the contract. Future Tech is made simple. We'll talk more about this, but Stryker offers a technology refresh program, which allows us to take advantage of new technology at the current price points. On-site service and support. Stryker comes to us to do service and support, preventive maintenance on our equipment. I cannot overemphasize to you how important that is to us being a small agency. Data tools, both performance improvement tools. Currently we have some of these tools, but it's only within EMS. It does not include our first responder partners. We'll talk more about that. And operational efficiencies due to standardization of our equipment across the fleet and compatibility with our other first responder partners. Whoops, sorry. So why ALS 360? Again, 10 years of level payments, guaranteed not to spike in our budget. This makes for easier fiscal planning. In the current plan, the plan is to have this in our operational budget so that we can predictably plan for this year after year. To me, the biggest selling point is the second bullet there, which is the technology refresh. At the beginning of this program, we will receive all new equipment. Everything that I listed, we will receive as new equipment. After 36 months, we can start to replace that equipment up to 60 months. We get to choose the method and timing of that replacement. If Stryker puts out a new piece of equipment, we automatically get that new equipment at the cost that we're at now. Our price does not change. Our annual payments do not change. So 5 years from now, Stryker puts out a new AED that's better than the one that we're currently using. We turn in all of our AEDs and we get all brand new AEDs, no additional cost. That's how we keep our fleet current without incurring additional costs. We get to choose when we replace the equipment. We can stagger that out so that we stay on top of our expected life expectancies in the literature. Here's the real sort of clincher for me. We already talked about the LifePak 35s. I don't think it's prudent that we adopt the LifePak 35s now, but in 2 or 3 years, once they've got a little road time under them, we could switch out all of our current LifePak 15 Gen 4s for LifePak 35s. We're still getting we would be getting those LifePak 35s at that $46,000 price point versus the $70,000 to $80,000 price point. That's about a $30,000 savings per device. Pit crew. Stryker offers a ProCare pit crew maintenance plan. That's a mouthful. But basically what that means is they bring on-site certified maintenance technicians for all our transport and treatment devices. Having a single asset maintenance program for all of this equipment and being able to track all of that service work is vital if an incident were to occur with a piece of equipment, because those records are what's going to help us reduce our risk. These are complicated pieces of technology, and they have to be maintained correctly. Gone are the days where we could maintain this stuff in-house. Our service technician, Billy, for Stryker, who manages all of our patient load equipment, actually lives here in Person County. Again, that's a huge bonus for us. We've called Billy at nights, on weekends, to say, hey, we've got a problem, can you help us out? And then invariably he shows up to help us with our equipment. We're not going to get that from another vendor. The pit crew approach brings an entire team of service technicians, so we can pull in a truck. They will PM all of the equipment on that truck at one time, and we put that truck back in service versus having to deal with multiple vendors, multiple vendor visits, pulling equipment at different times. It's a one-stop shop. It gets all done at one time, and the payments for our maintenance stay fixed over the life of the program. So one of the other questions that was asked is who else is using ALS 360? I put this slide together. This is not Stryker's slide. I put this slide together to show you some of the types, sizes, and localities that have adopted the ALS 360 program. These go from small individual fire departments to large cities and large counties across the United States. Currently, there are about 300 customers. This program started in 2020. Well, in 2020, all of these agencies and every EMS agency across the country was really focused on COVID. That's what their primary focus was. I would dare say if that had not been the case, this number would be well over 300. In North Carolina, the agencies there in red are agencies that have similar EMS divisions compared to ours. The two agencies in blue, Warren County and Stokes County, they are in the final processes of signing their contracts right now. That's why I listed them separately, but they are in the process of signing their contracts currently. Memphis Fire Department, which is not listed up there. A friend of mine is an assistant chief at Memphis Fire Department. They have 49 rigs. They adopted the ALS 360 program in 2020. They have 49 rigs, and in talking to him, what they have just saved in maintenance alone over the past 2 years, he just says makes this whole program worth it. So let's talk financials. We're going to look at this in two versions, the EMS version and the fire version. The reason that we're presenting it this way is because they're funded through two different sources. Though the purchase would be made as one single program for the most cost effectiveness and operational efficiency. But for keeping the finances straight, I'm presenting it as two different versions. You've probably noticed that the numbers in the slide presentation that you were given and the numbers in your agenda abstract were different. So let me go ahead and address that up front. I've been working with Mr. Green seated behind me on this project for 16 months. We've been back and forth looking at all sorts of options and scenarios to figure out how to make this the most cost-effective option. Myself, EMS Division, Chief Chandler, the county manager, the finance manager, the now interim finance manager, have spent hours looking at various ways to make this work. On the EMS side, I told you that we were leasing equipment. We don't actually lease the equipment from Stryker, we lease it through a banking institution. In discussion with Mr. Green and his finance team, they have agreed, since I submitted my budget abstract, to pay out our $76,000 final lease payment. That is due in August. They're going to make that payment to the bank for us. This does two things. It gives us that contract money that we had already allocated in our budget to put towards this program. And because then we technically own the equipment, it's no longer leased equipment, we can add that to our trade-in value, and that adds to our trade-in value for this program. On the fire side, one of the departments recently purchased LP 1000 AEDs, which allowed me to lower from my original request of 18 AEDs to 16 AEDs, and that lowered the cost just slightly on the fire version. So that's why the numbers are slightly different. So here's the EMS version. With the EMS version, we're purchasing 6 power load systems, six powered cots, 6 stair chairs, 12 LifePak 15 monitors, 9 Lucas devices, 5 LifePak 1000s, and 44 LifePak CR2 AEDs. What we really haven't talked about is all of the wraparound equipment that comes with this. And this isn't everything. This is just sort of a snapshot. All of our equipment needs Wi-Fi cellular gateways to be able to talk to our reporting program. That's included. Our data plan is included in that. Our LifeNet system, which tracks our assets, and our LifeNet Care, which is basically our performance improvement program, our CodeStat, which is a performance improvement program, All of that is part of this program as well. I've just not talked about them specifically. That's all included in the ALS 360 program. So let's break it down a little bit further for you. This is an example, and I use the word example purposefully because the numbers would change depending on when we decided to cash purchase equipment. But let's just say we purchase all new equipment year 1, and for the sake of this argument, I said we just replaced everything on year 4. Our payments would remain steady at $467,000 a year. But if we were to purchase this in cash, let's say year 2 we purchase stretchers, year 3 we purchase monitors, year 4 we purchase stair chairs, our cash purchase total is $5.9 million. So your projected savings between using ALS 360 versus cash is basically $1.3 million. Again, that's $337 a year of fixed. To expand it out a little bit further, what does this look like in capital equipment? We broke those out so you could see the difference. The one thing that we've not talked about is consumables. We use a lot of consumables, particularly with our cardiac monitors. Pretty much on every patient we're using consumables. This program gives us volume discounts at consumables. By having a single program and looping the fire department equipment underneath of this, we also get further discount because we would be able to discount their equipment as well, versus them doing it individually. The technology upgrade is included. So if you stretch out that 10 years, at year 7 or 8, we're back in the same boat. We have to repurchase all new capital equipment. Using the ALS 360 plan, that technology upgrade is already included in that fixed price. The fire version, what we're purchasing with the fire version is 9 Lucas chest compression devices. This is 1 per fire department. And 16 LifePak AEDs. That's 2 AEDs per fire department to put on their first and second run piece of apparatus, minus the one department that's already purchased LifePak 1000s. That will give us consistency and standardization across the fleet and allows us to move that patient data from the time of patient contact to the time that we deliver the patient to the hospital. I cannot overemphasize how important that is. Our ability to get that data to the physicians and our ability to then do performance improvement and to be able to give that feedback back to the fire departments and back to our providers to say, this is what you did, this is how well you did, here's your areas of opportunity, that's what's going to drive improving cardiac arrest survival. So within the fire version, we're looking at $80,562 a year. Total, over the 10 years, it's $805,000. If the fire departments went and tried to do this on their own, it would be $1.1 million if they tried to purchase this on their own. If you add those together, you add the fire and the EMS scenarios together. Again, this is an example because it would depend on when that equipment was purchased. Oops, sorry. But you're looking at a total purchase price for ALS 60 at $5.4 million. If we did it doing cash purchases, it would be $7.1 million. So you're talking about a projected savings of almost $1.7 million. So one of the questions that I've been asked is, will annual cost increase during the life of the program? The answer quite simply is no. The annual cost is locked in for 10 years from entering into the program. A copy of the contract, a sample contract, was provided to you in your agenda packet. But the cost could increase, but it would require action on our part. If we decide to add more equipment because we're expanding the size of our fleet, we're adding another ambulance, we're adding a response vehicle, then yes, the cost could go up if we wanted to add that equipment to this lease program or to this asset management program. Let's say year 3, we decide that we're going to buy a new ambulance. We need a monitor, we need a stretcher, we need a power load, we need a Lucas device. That cost could be purchased at whatever the market cost is at that time, and then that cost would be spread out over the next 7 years because that's the remainder of what's left in the program. Okay? That's a option. Option B would be we just purchase the equipment outright. This price doesn't change, we just purchase the equipment outright. Option C is we could enter into a separate lease agreement with them that's separate from this for a specified term to purchase the equipment. The last two options, though, may incur a separate maintenance agreement. So now we're also trying to, not only do we have potentially another lease agreement to manage, we also have another maintenance agreement to manage as well. The other question I've been asked is, what if we want to exit the program before the 10 years? Everything in this program is based on fair market value. When you look at the 10 years of the program, basically what they're anticipating is what is the fair market value going to be over that 10 years. That gives us the most flexibility at the end of that 10 years as to what our options are. So option one is at the end of that term, we have a couple of options. We can sign a new agreement with the same structure. We turn in all of our equipment, we get all new equipment, and we just continue at whatever the new annual cost is. That's one option. Option B is we pay the fair market value of the equipment and take ownership of that equipment at the end of the agreement. In the equipment schedule, which is separate from the contract that you were given, in the equipment schedule, there is a not to exceed clause per each individual piece of equipment. So they will tell us today, when we start the program, what our not to exceed equipment cost is going to be at the end of that 10 years. So that we know today, at the end of that 10 years, if we decide we want to buy that equipment, this is going to be the remaining cost for that piece of equipment. It will not exceed the amount that's listed in the equipment schedule. The third option is we continue to rent the equipment, payment structure stays the same. The problem with that is now you're just paying to rent equipment that's aging versus replacing it with new equipment, but it is an option. Option two is we can have them write the agreement with a cash out option. If we did this, it would increase our annual payment over what has been presented to you this morning, but we would take ownership of the equipment after the last payment and the agreement ends. So again, our costs would go up over the next, our costs would be higher, our payment for the next 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, we would own the equipment, but again, I'm not sure why you would want to do that, because now you're owning equipment that's 6-7 years old. We're just right back in the same position we're in today. So I'm not sure why we would want to do that, but it is an option. How do we get out of it before the 10 years? If for some reason we decide we want to get out of this app before the 10 years ends, we can purchase the equipment at the fair market value based on residual cost formula. They have a residual cost formula that says after year one, it depreciates this month. After year two, it depreciates. They have a residual formula. There are other factors that would factor into that, such as condition of the equipment, age of the equipment, other market influences. But if we give them 90 days notice and say we want to get out of this, there is an option. We would have to buy the equipment based on their residual cost formula. The other way out of it is if Stryker doesn't uphold their conditions of the contract. Then we get them for breach of contract and we exit the program. That's your other option. So why should we adopt the Stryker ALS 360 program? It gives us 10 years of level payments, which allows for better budgeting practices and no increases in equipment or maintenance costs over the 10 years. Our technology refresh after 36 months or upon launch of new technology allows the system to stay current. If new generation equipment is not launched in 60 months, then the equipment will be replaced with current generation, ensuring equipment is safe, reliable, and meets our FDA service life requirements. So just to make that clear, in 60 months, there's no new stretcher, like the stretcher is still the stretcher. We still get all new stretchers, it's just the current technology that we have because there is no new technology. Price includes all power load installations for ambulance fleet to include floor plates and wiring installation. The ProCare maintenance program consolidates all our maintenance contracts into one. We currently have 2 or 3 different maintenance contracts right now. This would consolidate all our maintenance contracts into one contract, covers on-site maintenance to reduce downtime, asset tracking, and again, our maintenance costs are fixed. Includes patient data management software for optimized tracking and sharing of patient biomedical data across the continuum of patient care in a HIPAA secure platform. So we can take that information from the time that the first responder arrives on scene and transmit that information or give that information to the physicians at the hospital. We get discounted pricings for consumable supplies and equipment. And if we do purchase additional equipment, which is likely, due to fleet growth, it could be added to the program through an addendum at current market costs, or market costs at that time. So this is our request. Total annual request is for $547,899 per year for 10 years. Since this was not funded in the fiscal year 24 budget request, we're requesting the following. $467,337 be allocated to the general fund to pay for the first payment. $109,000 of this is already in the EMS budget for striker contract and maintenance services, and this could be reallocated to this program. That leaves us with a shortfall of $358,337, which could be moved from existing ARP funds to cover the balance. Additionally, the request is asking to appropriate $80,562 from the Fire Tax District Special Revenue Fund to purchase equipment for the volunteer fire departments. Again, this would be a single program with a single purchase using two funding streams for maximum cost savings and operational efficiencies. I very much appreciate the opportunity to present to you this morning. I know this has been a bit lengthy, but I wanted to be sure that I answered as many of your questions as I could up front. However, I am happy to take any additional questions. I also have Mr. Green and Ms. Riggs with me in case I am unable to provide you an answer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate all your comments there. Going back to your opening comments about your disappointment of the board action previously. I think there was great concern about the 10-year period. There was great concern about the amount of money there. It was not about your job and what you do and your ability to serve the citizens of Person County. I don't think there's any question there. But the timing of, and we were in the budget season, and I think that may have had some impact on that first vote. So your numbers have changed. So again, state those requests for today.
And it is on the next to the last slide. There's
Okay,
hard
and
copies.
Sure.
There's
I don't have any
there's a
slides.
hard copy right next to your.
Oh, okay, in that
So
one,
it's on
yeah,
the
okay.
next to the last
All right.
slide. That has the numbers
All
that
right.
we're discussing today. It
And
says
this-
funding requests at the top.
It's more.
I'm happy to repeat it, sir, if you need me to.
All right. And then the volunteer fire departments part of their funding would coincide with this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yeah.
It's two funding streams, it's one purchase,
Mhm.
but yes, sir.
Okay.
And I will note, we had originally included that as a new line item within the fire tax district budget. And when the board pulled this, prior to approval, we moved it into unallocated. So it's still within their budget for this year. It's in the unallocated line item. If y'all do approve this, we will move it from unallocated into a line item specifically for this purchase.
And the proposal is from ARP funds? Our share?
Yes, yes, that's what you had mentioned during the budget work session. So the alternative is appropriating fund balance, because at this
We're-
point, it's not included in the budget, and we do not have another funding mechanism for it at this time. So this would be for the first year of funding for this program, and then we will reconsider the funding.
That would give you a balance in that ARP of what?
So currently, you have about $1.5 million that is not appropriated yet in the ARP fund.
But the
So if
EDC
you-
portion is still there.
Yes, it's reserved.
Okay.
So so there are many things that are reserved within that. There's 2.75 reserved for broadband expansion. Some of that's going towards the CAB program and the great grants. We still have $2 million set aside for economic development. Some of this year's CIP is funded through ARP. So currently, there's 1.5 that has not been allocated. It's still undesignated. So if you do shift approximately $366,000, and again, that was the previous number, we're looking at $358,337. That's gonna leave you with about, $1,140,000 left, to still consider potential uses for within the ARP funding.
Okay, we do that this year, out of that fund, then next year becomes part of the budget.
Yes.
And 1 penny in tax gives you how much money?
It was around $550,000 this year.
So you're looking at a penny increase maybe next year to compensate for that and offset.
It will all be taken into account when we're
Oh, yeah.
creating the budget and looking at the revenue that's available next year.
But I don't have a problem with the needs. Very well explained, much more in depth, much clearer than previously presented, and so I don't have a problem with that. When you plug in a number 10 years, who knows? I don't know tomorrow. Tomorrow's an unknown.
Do I, sir?
So please forgive me for having that question mark there, but again, it's all about the people that we serve, and that's a priority consideration. Board members, questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. One is, the volunteer fire departments. We're taking what, how much, 80,000 out of the tax fund,
Yes,
Tax.
that is, we're not pulling it out of their fund balance. It's actually, that money is available within the collections for this current fiscal year. Their budget is based on the amount that we anticipate collecting in the fire tax district. We can fund everything that was previously included in the budget, as well as the addition of this item within the
What
budget.
about going forward? The money coming, where would the money, the fire departments, as far as what they would have to, from their budget, what would they?
So again, this is adding to their budget within the amount of revenues that we anticipate collecting. So as long as we continue to collect that amount of revenues or more, I mean, typically we do see some growth in revenues from year to year. This is something that can be become a staple within that budget from year to year.
So the other thing with me, our company, is we have the Phillips Heart Star. And I know when I first started looking at AEDs, I wanted something that would be able to, when EMS arrives, they can hook up and take off. But if you go with this new Life Pack, then you won't have that option.
No,
You have to take everything off.
No, we'll exactly have that option. We do
It
not
will-
currently.
so it will-
We do not have that option with Philips. In order for Philips to work, we have an adapter that we have to take their pads, plug it into adapter to try to plug into our pads.
Phillips, so the pads I have would not have to come off, you guys could hook up.
Because we have an adapter that we adapt their pads to our machine, yes.
Okay.
But the problem with that is I can't pull data off of that machine. I have no way to pull data off that machine. So if you go into cardiac arrest, we get you back. I have no way of looking at that machine and trying to figure out what your presenting rhythm is. I have no way of doing that.
I mean, I get you on that, but I guess my question though is that I'm sure I'm not the only company that has AEDs in their plant. And so, and I don't know what their intentions were, but I know with mine was to be able to, EMS arrives and then they just take and unhook. And if you got an adapter, and that's fine.
We do.
Hook up. But if you're gonna take the pads off and start all over, then.
In some cases, we have to because Philips is the only adapter that we have. So if it's a cardiac science monitor, we don't have an adapter. We have to pull those pads off and put our pads on.
Right. Okay.
Question, 15 versus 35. Does this cost analysis that you give us, does this cover every department that we have? Or is it just like one per?
No, sir. So the only.
This is covering
the
all
only
of the county, correct?
The only agency that carries the cardiac monitored defibrillators is EMS.
Is what?
is EMS. That's the only
EMS.
department that carries them.
Okay.
The fire department, sheriff's office, they carry AEDs. They don't carry the full cardiac monitors.
Okay.
You said you were gonna have to purchase 16 new, is it AEDs or life packs? Which one was you were gonna purchase 16?
16, under the fire contract, it would be 16 Life Pack 1000 AEDs.
To the volunteer fire
For the
department?
volunteer fire departments. That's 2 per department.
And have you discussed that with the volunteer
It's
fire
been
departments?
presented to the fire chiefs, yes, sir.
And they're good with that?
They didn't present opposition, yes, sir.
So the AEDs that they have, or the life packs they got now, that are not the 15s, what happens to those? They'll keep them, use them, still use them?
That's up to them. They own those. We do not own them.
Okay.
So they could move them to other apparatus. They could put them in personal vehicles. They could redistribute them, though I would tell you that a lot of them are past their service life. So some of them probably need to be put out of service.
And talking about service life, we were talking about these stair chair lift. You have one that you said was 20 years?
Yes, sir.
And the life expectancy of that was 7 years, so when it expires?
8 years, or 7 years, yes, sir.
So in 20 years, why would we not have already said, hey, we got one that's 15 or 60?
That's a
Why
great-
would we not say we got that so that we could purchase that and not be this far out of compliance?
That's a great question, sir. I wasn't here then. I'm trying to fix the issue now.
Okay.
By your professional experience, which would you prefer and recommend, 15 or 35?
Today, I would recommend we continue with the Life Pack 15s until the 35s have a
That's
little
kinda what I
little
read
bit
on
more
there.
experience.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a great device. Please understand, I'm not bad-mouthing the device.
Right.
My experience has been, sometimes you don't want to be the first guy out the door, you tend to get shot. So right now, I would stay with Life Pack 15s.
Spear point.
Yes, sir.
Is there any effort to coordinate or make compatible this equipment with other industries in the county, like Commissioner Sims' facility that has high number of employees, and they already have equipment like Hollywood or Duke Energy or?
So I work with any industry in the county that has questions about AEDs. I certainly, as a county entity, I cannot recommend one brand over
I understand.
another. I give them my opinion. I cannot recommend
Sure.
one brand over another.
Have you done that?
Yes, I
That's
have.
fine. Okay.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yes.
Okay.
So-
Oh, go ahead, sir.
And you mentioned this in your presentation, so we go 2 years and we say, forget this, we need to cancel this contract. So then the equipment that we have, we would have to buy
Yes, sir.
at fair market value.
At the residual schedule that they produce. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. How much is, Strada, you guys are here. How much are y'all, what's y'all's profit on this?
Well, it depends when you would exit, right? So if you decide to purchase early, that residual program moves along with time. So in terms of profit, it would depend on when you exit. But
Right.
what he displayed when showing you that cash value versus the value of leasing the equipment over 10 years, that's based on our financial team just projecting out. And what they do is they looked at trends over the last 10 years of our price increases, the price of goods, interest rates, all of those things are examined, and then they push forward a projection. And that's how they project out what you would pay to buy the same amount of equipment at cash in the next 10 years versus getting into the program now, locking in your price, one payment per year for 10 years. And what we've seen, and if you've spoken to any other counties in North Carolina that have used the program, I believe you said you spoke to your,
I've spoken to one.
to someone in Memphis as well,
Memphis.
who's on the program. What they've seen is they've seen savings, and particularly because the maintenance is a part of it as well. And once they get in and start seeing how the maintenance comes into effect, and that they don't have to incur the price increases that have come as our cost of goods have gone up, they've seen significant savings from doing the program.
We break one of the lifts. What is, that expense on us then?
It's covered through maintenance unless it's just pure negligence. Like if it's something that we did that was just negligence, then that would be on us. But anything that breaks just due to normal wear and tear and that kind of stuff, it's covered under the maintenance plan.
So we're back over a stretcher, we pay for it.
Yeah, that would be negligence, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I would add too, as part of the maintenance agreement, all your batteries are replaced with that. So, I mean, some of the batteries are between $600 and $900. So, some depending on device, we recommend replacing every 3 to 4 years. Instead of having to pay for those, we just give you new batteries. So your AED set batteries, everything that you presented has a battery, and you're just getting that as part of your maintenance agreement.
Are those dry cell, lithium, or what?
Most are lithium.
Fire hazards that you experienced?
It has the little thing on the box when they're shipped, but.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just say, when we saw this on our budget, I think, you know, and I looked at it, it was a big increase from the year before. And that, anytime there was an increase of that amount, it was a red flag.
Sure.
To dig deeper into this and figure out what we're getting into. So, there's, again, that's the reason why me personally was like, we need to get more information on this and figure out what we're doing.
Yeah,
It's a big increase from our budget, from the year before.
Right.
So,
And as I said, I do understand your position. You needed more information to make a decision. Hopefully I've provided that to you today.
And just to echo, the chairman and Commissioner Sims, when we took this out of the budget, I mean, if we had heard this presentation before the budget was adopted, we would have found a way for it to be included in the budget. You know, and that could have been an opportunity to have this presentation done before then on that, so that's where we're at now.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. That's the way I perceive it as well.
I appreciate it.
Any questions of the experts here? Okay.
Thank you, John.
Have you reviewed these agreements here?
All they've given us is a sample agreement.
Mhm.
So if the commission decided to enter into the agreement, that'd be the next step, is you could authorize manager Kathy to execute the agreement, and I would review and negotiate any terms. And if there was something substantive, we'd certainly come back to the board.
Great, thank you. Okay, no other questions. Do we have a motion to approve the striker request as presented?
So moved.
Have a motion on the floor for approval. Any other questions, comments?
Is this for the fund and allocation as well, in addition to the agreement?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So taking taking it out of ARP
Yes.
and taking 358 out of ARP, right?
Yes,
Yep.
That would leave that at
358,337.
1.14.
yes, rounded, yes.
Okay, now, state the motion again, Madam Clerk.
The motion was for the 358,562.
$358,337 from ARP.
Mhm.
In
Okay.
addition to using fund balance.
No, the 109,000 is already within the EMS budget to pay for existing maintenance agreements.
Okay.
So that would be shifted into this line item through a budget a budget transfer within the
adjustment, yeah.
department. So that would cover the general fund EMS allocation portion. Then we would also need to move 80,562 from the unallocated line item within the fire tax district budget into contract services, or I can't recall exactly which line item it was in, but we would reduce unallocated by this amount to fund this program this year.
you say you don't know how much is in the unallocated fund? this
I
time?
can pull that up, I don't know off the top of my head.
But it is sufficient.
Yes, it is sufficient. because there was some in it, and then we added this back into unallocated.
Well, it's grown over the last couple of years, is that right?
So the fund balance continues to grow, and this is just the budget, the unallocated line item. So it's gonna be less than it was last year because we pulled some money out of it last year to pay for the ISO bonuses. But that's just a line item within their budget, and I can look that up in about 5 seconds if y'all want me to tell you exactly what it is.
Two, I do think it's good use of ARP funds, and then cooperation between the volunteers and all included. It's a good way of accomplishing this goal. The questions, you clear?
So just to verify, we're taking 109,000 from fund balance.
No, it's already within the EMS budget. It's budgeted within contract services line items to pay maintenance agreements.
Okay.
It's in this year's budget. So we'll just process that as a transfer. You don't have to approve that portion of it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the answer to the unallocated question is, there is currently $186,852 in the unallocated line item for fiscal year 25 for the fire tax district. So that's gonna leave just just over $100,000 in that line item.
Okay. Good. Item number 11 on the agenda is Animal Services Citation and Fee Schedule Amendments. Ms. Lewis?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here before you today to present and discuss animal service citation, animal services citation and fee schedule amendments. Per the Board of Commissioners' request in the May meeting, the Animal Advisory Committee met in June to discuss potential changes regarding that request. So today, the following recommendations are being proposed by the Animal Advisory Committee for consideration as updates to the citation forms and the corresponding fee schedule. They would like to edit the wording at the top of the animal control citations from warning to written warning for the purposes of ensuring issuance of the citations for documentation and public education purposes. Also, to increase the amount on the citation from 100 to 250 for the animal control citation fees that are given in reference to leaving a dangerous dog unattended. Do you have any questions?
That's a good move. I appreciate it. I'm sure the county will appreciate that. Good job to you and your board.
Thank you.
I had a lot of information I was gonna delve to the public, but I don't think it's necessary. I will give you a semblance, well, actually, a situation of a neighbor of mine that happened that brought the current city leash law into effect. We spoke yesterday by text. She's in Richmond. In 1993, mother and my nephew Marshall was in the, God have mercy, backyard. When two pit bulls belonged to people renting a house along Chubb Lake Road or Street and Morgan. They were not chained or pinned. Mayor Don Waldo at the time fought to help get the leash law enacted on behalf of my mother. And the lady's name is Linda Wooten. Her mother's name was Mary Alice Long. Most of us in this room know the Long family. I looked at City Leash Law Ordinance 92.14 and the Dangerous Animal Ordinance 92.18. They were enacted on 4/5 of '93, which coincides with the '93 time period. you can view those ordinances online, which I already had did my homework. I just wanted to verify through her, because this was talked about several years ago when her mother was alive. Josephine was with Mother and Marshall. Josephine was a colored lady who tended to Miss Long in her latter years, for about 30 years. Very sweet lady. And so Josephine had to take a broom and beat the two dogs to get the child and the mother to safety. She found and saved his skin. The dogs tore off mother's leg, which was able to be grafted back in place, thankfully. It could have been much worse. Mother almost died that day. I think it's imperative for us as representatives of this county to strengthen and go with your recommendation, your board's recommendation. And I hope the other guys will agree with me. So I will make a motion that we accept your board's proposal.
Have a motion for acceptance of the proposal as presented. Further comments, questions, board members? Ms. Lewis? None? Hearing none. All in favor of the proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Item number 12 on the agenda is PCBIC structure. And you had some information in your packet there related to this conversation, and hopefully you've reviewed all this. And as we continue discussions of the future of EDC, PCBIC, I believe there are a couple of things that commissioners, or we as commissioners, should remember and consider. BOC members are the stewards of the taxpayer money and should be cautiously aware of how tax money is spent. Secondly, as commissioners, a major emphasis should be placed on building the county's tax base. That's our probably priority as a board. And I'm reading from a document there that was handed to you by a clerk previously. Number 3, PCBIC was first initiated as a nonprofit arm of the county EDC department designed to assist in accomplishing that goal. The BOC appointed members with faith and trust in their ability to carry out the goals and objectives of the BOC and must be a mirror image of the county's long-range goals and objectives. Having a determined and thriving, self-motivated nonprofit is critical to the future growth, and as such is charged with raising funds to be self-funded, self-perpetuating organization, not one funded by line item taxpayer funds in the county budget. And following is a list of options for changes in the structure of EDC and PCBIC. Number 1, the elimination of the EDC board. Within current county structure, the EDC has 3 employees capable of carrying out the economic development business of the county. This change eliminates back-to-back meetings and frequent duplication of agenda items, and would streamline the county's economic development efforts and eliminate lengthy and unproductive meetings that can be a burden to volunteer members. Next, PCBIC would continue to operate with current membership as allowed by statute and would be completely responsible for future removal or appointment of its members. Third, PCBIC should review their vision and mission statement, assuring that they coincide with county economic goals to ensure a joint plan for economic growth between both organizations. And number 4, PCBIC should establish fundraising guidelines that support economic goals and objectives of the county without county budgeted funds. The EDC staff has visited other counties which have successful nonprofits that PCBIC could adopt or incorporate into current operations, taking advantage of what others have done without wasting time and effort. Number 5, PCBIC should establish guidelines for projects that require county support to include an itemized, detailed list of projected cost, benefits, incentives, and expected outcomes, and submit to the two commissioners 60 days prior to being considered as an agenda item. Historically, the BOC has supported PCBIC economic efforts, and I believe it will continue to do so when viable projects are presented to the BOC. Number 6, my research has found that there are some unknowns about where the funds to purchase some of the land titled to PCBIC came from, and at minimum, PCBIC should be required to retitle land paid for by taxpayers back to the county, to whom the property is titled, has been an unnecessary issue in recent negotiations and needs to be corrected. And just as a closing note, economic development is a team sport, and we expect that with our county entities, and the ultimate winners are the county citizens and taxpayers. So I am offering this as a recommendation to go to the PCBIC, and I believe they meet the 23rd. And I think we talked about this previously. You've had some documents in your hand previously. I did forward this same document to, I think I did previously to PCBIC Chair Allen. So if you got, I'll have some questions. I'll try to answer, and the overall goal is improvement. And
Under the agenda abstract, you have the funding that was approved.
Yes.
Has that funding been dispersed?
It has not, because we do not have a signed funding agreement, and I do have a draft agreement, and this for this current fiscal year 25. So there is a draft funding agreement in the agenda packet for the board's consideration tonight. So you can approve the funding agreement as written or amend it if you so choose to add any additional provisions. There were two slight edits that need to be made after President Allen and Vice President McKinney reviewed it. There's a word that needs to be removed where it said special time appropriation, removed the time, and then it referred to PCBIC's current fiscal year, and their fiscal year is a calendar year, so I just changed that wording to reflect the county's current fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
All right, so before we dive in, I appreciate the chairman putting much thought, and I believe there is merit into what he is saying, but let's go ahead and get this funding agreement out of the way. I thought it was final when we voted on the budget, but Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the funding agreement as presented in the agenda packet.
And that number again was?
$62,800. The funding
okay.
was approved, but then just as we have funding agreements in place with other nonprofits, we need to have this written agreement in place.
Okay, so all parties in it are in agreement then with, what you had said you're gonna place in the stipulations required.
No.
There are two edits to the
Edits, okay,
document that's
edits,
included
okay.
in
That's
your
fine. All right.
agenda packet.
You're talking about the stipulations and the funding.
It is written along the same lines as what you approved for the fiscal year 24 funding for PCBIC.
Okay.
So it just requires a report at the end of the fiscal year. It notes that they must use the funding per the for the reasons
Okay.
cited in their proposal.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Further questions on the funding request? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
One question, Mr. Chairman, and I had what you had originally given us at our previous meeting,
Mhm.
and
This is a little
we had a
more
lot of
streamlined.
paperwork at our desk, so this is the first time I didn't even know we had it sitting here. Let's see.
That's previous.
Yeah, I got the previous one on that. Has the one that you handed out, this morning,
It should say July 15th.
July 15th?
Yes.
Has that been sent to, PCBIC leadership?
I did send that by email to President Allen.
Miss-
I don't know if,
Mr. Allen?
yeah, you can speak, you can come up if you like. We've had trouble communicating with emails previously, so I don't really know.
The answer to that question is after your last meeting, Chairman Powell, several days after the last meeting. I think your last meeting may have been on the 17th. On the 19th, you did send me an email
Okay.
that had
Yeah,
that had your comments and your observations as of your June 17th meeting.
Okay. And this is sort of a revised or
I have not
streamlined?
received that.
Okay.
I
All
have
right.
not received that.
Okay.
I have not received that.
Well, it's just to forward this to EDC and next steps after that more.
I think, this is a good start, but before I feel that this board votes on any recommendation, those individuals that we appointed to EDC and PCBIC are people that we vested in, and we wouldn't have appointed them if we didn't value their input, and that's why they're in that position. I think it would be prudent if, before we have an official recommendation by the Board of Commissioners to involve PCBIC to get their input on this. And, this is a fluid situation. This is something that we're trying to, gradually get to. And, as the Vice President of PCBIC spoke at our budget session, and it seemed he was very open to those changes, and actually had started, I think, going down that road and having that discussion. So I think it would be good to have PCBIC to get their feedback on this, and who knows, maybe after y'all given y'all's input back on it, because I think I think us and PCBIC have the same vision as to what we want to get to. It's just a matter of how we do it, and I think strong communication is the right start with that. So whether we have a joint meeting with PCBIC and the Board of Commissioners, that certainly can be on the table to collect feedback. I think the chairman has put a lot of thought into this, and give you a chance to look at this document that was presented to us today, and continue to have these dialogues and discussions to get to where we need to be, and value each other's input.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, essentially, that's the request to forward this.
Yes.
And they meet the 23rd.
We meet next
And
week.
also, I believe you meet every other month, so.
As well as the EDC.
So maybe at your next week's meeting, you could get some feedback. Possibly.
First of all, I'd like to say thank y'all for appropriating and approving the funding agreement. We certainly appreciate that. And we are fully prepared to address and discuss and respond to all of the observations and the comments of Chairman Powell, both from the last meeting and the ones that you will send to me today at our next meeting. And In fact, over the last several months, our executive committee has looked at the various changes in some of the areas that, the gray areas, and we spent a great deal of time over the past month discussing the items that were brought forward at the last county commission meeting. So I agree with Commissioner Pereira and Commissioner Powell that we will continue to have these conversations. We'll fully discuss them, we'll fully address them, and we will fully respond to them.
Now, do you have a meeting in August, or?
Yes, we do. We do not have a meeting in August, but if we need to call a special call meeting, we'll be glad to do that.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll do that at any time, so we can focus on all of these issues and all of these items and all of these concerns and all of these requests and all of these observations.
Didn't you just earlier say you and Gordon agreed that you do the meeting next week?
We got a meeting scheduled next week.
Okay.
We already have a PCBIC.
So we may not
meeting
even
next
need to go into August.
Well,
Yeah,
like,
good.
if needed.
If needed, right.
Charlie, just a point of clarification. We will address and respond and discuss
Right.
these items.
Right.
And we will be fully prepared to come back at some point, whether it be at your next meeting or a special call meeting, and discuss the consensus of our full PCBIC board. I believe it's a bit premature for me to present today because we haven't presented to our full board, and it's the chairman's request that we take this to our board at our next meeting.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
all right?
Would you like a copy of that? And I can send it to you.
Yes, sir, that'd be great. That'd be great. And I'm prepared to sign the agreement right now, if that'd be appropriate. The funding agreement while I'm here.
I believe the chairman has that.
Okay.
Well, if it's only a signature, I guess we're okay.
I'm gonna pass this to the clerk, Mr. Allen.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
right on the top there.
Okay.
So our motion on this subject then, Mr. Perrier, is to do what? Say that again.
I received your information and since you represent the county commissioners on PCBIC, ensure that this information is passed on to them and let them provide feedback to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay,
on
have a
that.
motion on the floor. Any other questions or comments?
I don't think we need a motion for that, do we?
Well-
Because that's just,
No, I mean, you could table the matter, or you could
Yeah.
just take it back up after you've received PCBIC's
Yeah.
recommendations. Because at this point, there's really just an active discussion.
Yeah.
Make a
Just
motion
re-
to table.
yep.
All right, all in favor of the motion as to table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate everything you're doing.
Sir,
Thank you very much.
We'll be in touch. Item number 13, designation of voting delegate to the NC Association of County Commissioners Annual Conference. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Annual Conference is being held August the 8th through August the 10th in Forsyth County, with the business meeting being held August 10th at 2 p.m. We need a voting delegate to represent Person County. I'm requesting that the board designate Vice Chairman Sims, since he is attending that conference.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
motion for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried.
Chairman Powell.
Yes, ma'am.
While we're on the topic of a voting delegate, I wanted to call to your attention that we all received an email Friday afternoon from Abby Thayer with the NCACC. There will be an NCACC District 8 caucus next Monday morning at 9:30. She sent a calendar appointment, and the text of that appointment explains what the meeting is all about. There's an attachment that shows the history of district directors, which serve for a 2-year term, and it explains the district director role. So this meeting is to elect a district director for our District 8, which includes Franklin, Granville, Person, Vance, and Warren counties. Within the rotational history, it is Person County's turn to take on the district director role, if anybody so desires on the board. So I want to go ahead and just call that to your attention. But we also need to have someone who is designated to vote on Person County's behalf during this meeting to elect a district director. So I just wanted to check with you all to see who plans to attend that meeting and determine who the voting member would be for Person County at the District 8.
What's the date on that again?
It's July 22nd at 9:30 a.m. and it is via Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
Any volunteers? I have a
I can-
doctor's appointment.
I can do it.
Do what?
Attend the meeting Zoom.
Oh.
What she's talking
Okay, and but we have to designate a district, what's it
Are
called?
we
A
talking
district-
two different
A
things?
district director?
Yes, two.
So we do need to make sure we have someone designated to vote. And
Okay.
then if someone on the board, it's not absolutely necessary for Person County to serve as the next in the rotation, but over the course of time, the history that they have outlined, which goes back to 1986, that has been the rotation, and we're up. So if anyone is interested on the board or wants to give that some thought between now and then.
You have to be an elected official currently in
Yes,
office.
yes, it is a commissioner.
And it's a, how many year role?
2-year role.
2-year role.
That, yeah.
Well,
And they're gonna take nominations during this meeting, so you don't have to decide today. I plan to attend as well. They're going to take nominations, so you can certainly throw your hat in the ring during the meeting or ask someone else to nominate you during the meeting if it's something you'd like to do, if you'd like to give some more attention to, you know, what's written as far as what's
Yeah, we've
expected
talked
of the
more
district director.
about it, I'm not sure what exactly are the responsibilities and duties.
Yeah, it's, there is a PDF attached to that calendar invite that provides, that information. But it sounds like, Commissioner Sims will be on the call and could serve as the vote for Person
Sure,
County, if that's
absolutely.
okay with everybody else, along with the annual conference. Okay. Thank you.
Well, okay, now, we need a vote on Sims being the delegate.
Chairman, we did vote on that.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Puryear made that motion.
Yeah, amongst other things. All right, so we do have that motion on the floor. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Okay, for just a couple of notes, I would say, as far as Chairman's report. Had a very productive meeting with the Airport Commission last week regarding future plans. And then we had a very lengthy and informative planning board meeting the same night related to some projects, one of which was the mega park going forward, and those were informative, and that particular vote was unanimous to proceed with actions to be taken there. I want to ask a question in my, I guess, a question in my comment. The comment was made previously, something about Person County refused to have a DQ meeting here in the county regarding the MEC site. I mean,
I am not aware that there was a decision made by Person County not to host that air quality permit hearing. I do know that the state inquired as to a place within the county to hold it. I believe that we offered a few suggestions.
Yes, that's correct.
And I believe they reached out regarding reservations. Beyond that, I was not aware that there was any type of challenge to their being able to reserve a facility. I can check with their staff as well as our staff to find out what conversations were had. Again, that would have happened at the reservation level. I'm not aware of there being any issues, but it may be that they heard they needed to sign the agreement and made a different decision. But I did not know that that was a problem. I did see where they were holding it and was very surprised to learn that it was not happening in Person County. So I don't know why that decision was made by the state, but I'm not aware that it was a conscious decision for Person County to decide not to host the hearing.
I'm not aware of any discussions along that line. And we knew this hearing was coming, and we've talked about that months ago, several months ago. Knowing that, we had offered the auditorium here. If I remember right, they made a suggestion to have that hearing at PCC.
We had some discussions about there
Back and forth.
possibly being space limitations
Mhm.
in the auditorium because
Right.
it exceeded its capacity the last time around, so there might be an auditorium within the county that could accommodate more individuals.
So there was no opposition to do it here in the county that I'm aware of. We never had that discussion.
Never had that
No, we
discussion.
Never did, none whatsoever. So I'm surprised at those comments, and I want to make that perfectly clear that we were not opposed, and surprised, as Manager Kathy has just said, that they chose Henderson. And my feedback through parties involved was that DEQ made that decision. And based on the proximity of the site in relationship geographically, mileage-wise, it was closer to the Vance Granville Community College.
I don't know why that site was
That's what I
chosen.
was told by someone that I think was pretty much informed on the subject. And so again, we as a board and we as a county staff had nothing to do with that decision. I want to make that clear. Okay, Commissioner Sims.
Just want to thank everyone. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting. I had a family emergency, and appreciate being excused. And again, just thank everyone for the well wishes of my grandson. So again, thank everybody for that, and that's it.
Commissioner Palmer.
I would like to thank all the department heads who did come and bring presentations today for the betterment of this county. Outside of that, I have not been busy. I took full advantage of my little vacation.
Good.
County
Commissioner
manager-
Purdy.
County manager report.
I wanted to add, I did bring, Chairman Powell referenced the Airport Commission and the presentation that we had on terminal, possibilities. And I did bring hard copies if anybody wants to take a look at that while you're here today.
I'm sorry. We go back and forth with you, anyway. Put you up front and put you at last, I don't know. It's equally
that's
important.
it.
So, okay.
I would like to say, very happy but yet very sad. Our library director is moving on to a great opportunity with UNCG, and hate to lose her, but she's done Kaylee's done a great job, and so I hope we can find another director just as good as she was.
Okay, Commissioner Thomas.
No report.
A report, okay. Then, do we have a motion to go into closed sessions?
So moved.
Have a motion to go into closed sessions, and let's see, we will have two.
We removed one?
Can we have a 5-minute break?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. Aye. Opposed, none. Motion carried. Thank you, sir. Sirs.
Have a good day.
I debated on that.
Well, they're